Hello there, Dr. Zakir with you, Senior ENT Consultant, and you're going to watch the topic, you're going to see the topic which I'm going to discuss about multinodular goiter, the non-toxic variety. This topic I have dealt in 4 different parts. The first part being small introduction of the thyroid gland, the normal functions of the thyroid gland and why some of them they develop multinodular goiter. In the second part, I have discussed about, I have told about concentrating mainly on the patient complaints and the doctor's examination finding. And the third part, I have dealt with the main investigations related to multinodular goiter non-toxic variety, specifically to that particular disease. And the last one, this part, the main one, I am going to tell you about the treatment, concentrating mainly the post-operative care. So let us start. Now, some of the patients, they are totally asymptomatic, means they don't have any breathing difficulty, they don't have any swallowing difficulty, the voice is normal, they don't have any cosmetic problem, but they have been diagnosed as multinodular goiter non-toxic variety. So these asymptomatic patients, they need to be, after the regular necessary investigation, they had to be regularly followed up. When the patients, they have complaints like breathing difficulty, pressure symptoms like breathing difficulty, swallowing difficulty, change of voice, sure, they have to go ahead with surgery. Likewise, when you do a fine needle aspiration of the thyroid nodule and the report has come as suspicious of malignancy, that condition also we need to do surgery. And for cosmetic reasons also, we do surgery. Now, when it has been decided that the patient needs surgery, the patient gets admitted and we first take a consent from you. In that consent paper, it will be written the diagnosis, that is multinodular goiter non-toxic variety, and the surgery, that is thyroidectomy, which can be hemithyroidectomy, it can be subtotal, it can be total, it can be neototal. You have so many different varieties, but I'm just for this video, I'm just going to mention it is just as thyroidectomy. And along with that, the next line will be the complications of the surgery. So, after going through the whole thing, reading the whole thing, the patient and the witness who has come along with you, they have to sign, write your name, put in a date, and the doctor on duty who is there with you will do the same. Now, at this point, let me tell you the complications related to surgery. So, the first one is going to be bleeding. It can be intraoperative or bleeding on the same day of surgery, or it can be subsequent day, there is an initial few days of surgery. So, if it so happens the patient bleeds after the patient has come to the recovery room or the patient has gone to his room, if he bleeds, then if we are not able to control in the bedside by small measures, then the patient has to be taken back to the operation theatre and explode, in the sense the stitches has to be removed and see where the bleeding is coming from. We have to control the bleed. Means, in short, we have to give one more anesthesia, the patient has to be taken back to the operation theatre. See, to prevent this, usually we put a drain, which I will tell you subsequently. So, please note that there is a possibility of bleeding and we have to taken back to the theatre to control it. The second being the change of void after surgery. It can be temporary, it can be permanent. Temporary in the sense they have it for first few days, 4-5 days. That is because the endotracheal tube, which the anesthetist doctor has introduced into the voice box, which is there in position for at least 2 to 3 hours. So that may irritate the vocal cords and you may have change of voice for a few days, say 4 or 5 days. But in case the nerve on the either side of the thyroid gland, it is transected. We have one on each side. So if it's only one which is getting transected, or because we had sometimes what happens, it turns out the condition turns out to be malignant and it invades the nerve also. It can be so. In that case, what happens is only one side being transected, there will be voice change at least for 4-5 months and slowly it becomes to near normal. Unfortunately, if both the nerves are transected, then the vocal cords doesn't move properly and the patient can end up with permanent breathing difficulty and change of voice too. Now, the fourth point being hypocalcemia, means the calcium level drops down after surgery. See, what the normal calcium controlling hormone or the gland, it is just behind the thyroid gland or along with the thyroid gland. So, what happens during surgery? So we don't remove that particular gland, but because of the instrumentation or the handling of the gland, it doesn't function for a few days. So, it can be temporary, or the gland has been totally removed, so it is going to be permanent. So, this I will detail later on because that is very important. The next being, there is something called thyroid storm, which is not very common in the non-toxic variety of multinodular goiter. The sixth one being hypothyroidism, where after the surgery, mainly when you do a subtotal or total thyroidectomy, the whole thyroid gland has been removed and we have to supplement every day L-thyroxine we have to give. If not taken properly, the patient can go into hypothyroidism. Related to the wound, we have two complications. One is seroma formation, that is fluid-like formation, which can be easily dealt with. The other one being that the scar becomes very prominent. It can be hypertrophic scar, or suppose a patient has got a tendency for keloid formation, he may get a keloid there in the scar. That is one of the conditions. Now, before the surgery, we have to do a flexible endoscopy, and we have to see the normal, the vocal cord, the position of the vocal cord and the mobility of the vocal cord, whether both the vocal cords are moving normally or not. So, first I will show you a video where both the vocal cords are moving normally. So, it is introduced through the nose after anesthetizing the nose, and I am proceeding towards the posterior part of the nose, that is the nasopharynx, and it goes down to the oropharynx and reaches the voice box. And when I reach the voice box, I will tell the patient to say the little word E. So, when the patient says E, the vocal cord, it starts moving like this. This is the right one, this is the left one. I will show you now. So, these are the vocal cords. So, when I say E, it starts moving, approximating. E. Again, E. So, both the vocal cords are moving normally. So, for you to understand, let me show you next video where this patient who is getting ready for surgery, and already she gives a history of change of voice. So, when I did a flexible scopy for her, I saw that the left vocal cord is not moving, it is paralyzed. This is a preoperative finding, by the way. So, if you notice, the right vocal cord, this one is moving normally, and the other one, the left one, doesn't move at all. So, this is left vocal cord palsy, this is preoperative, and when we did surgery for her, it has turned positive for malignancy. Now, when that procedure is over, so subsequent day, say next day is the surgery, so previous day night from 12 o'clock, you are not supposed to take anything, not to drink and not to eat anything. So, the surgery usually it takes less than 3 to 3.5 hours. Now, after the surgery, when you come back to the recovery room or to the ward or to your room, the next 4 hours you are not supposed to eat or drink anything. And the surgery which I have mentioned, here I am going to mention just the word thyroidectomy. As I have told you, we have so many different types of thyroidectomy. And after the surgery, when come back to the ward, next 4 hours you are not supposed to eat or drink anything. Meanwhile, the IV fluids will be going on, and the staff nurse on duty, she will check all your vitals along with temperature, and she will check the neck. So, if there is a swelling, whether it is increasing, because what she wants to know whether the wound is bleeding or not. So, even that she will be checking. And the same time, IV antibiotics will be going on, and along with painkillers. Now, this is how the wound looks like. Before I put a bandage, I have taken a picture to show you that. See, if you see here, you see a drain. This drain with vacuum action, it sucks out all the blood if it is there inside the wound. And that drain is going to be there at least for 1 or 2 days. That is minimum when it drops the collection in the drain. When it drops down less than 25 millimeters, we will take it out. So, I will show you a small video with the drain in position. So, this is the drain in position. drain in position, and this is the back. This will be removed within 48 hours, 24 to 48 hours. So let me tell you how we manage a few complications. The bleeding I have already told you, if it is severe, not able to control, we have to take back the patient to the operation theatre, give general anesthesia once again, open up the wound, see where it is bleeding from, control it, complete hemostasis, and then put a drain once again and come up. If there is change of voice that is persisting more than 3-4 days, we will go ahead and do a bedside endoscopy and decide according to the finding. When the breathing difficulty soon after the surgery, and if it is only mild, we will give steroids and we will observe. But it is severe, we will do a bedside flexible endoscopy, and if you find both the vocal cords are not moving, then we will go ahead and do a tracheostomy. That is, we put a small hole in the mid part of the lower part of the neck so that the patient gets an alternative way of breathing. This is not that common, but it is always best to know this. Suppose a patient gets hypocalcemia, the calcium level drops, then we have to supplement the calcium. When the patient goes into hypothyroidism, so we have to substitute with L-throxine. The last is thyroid crisis, which is not common in non-toxic variety. Now, during the discharge time, these are the following advice, which is most important. Now, you will be giving a course of antibiotics, say about 5 to 7 days. Take it after food, and the painkiller for first 3 or 4 days, and subsequently if you have pain you can take, otherwise you can take it only when necessary. You will be started with tablet calcium, usually it comes in 500 milligrams, 1 tablet 3 times daily or 2 tablets 3 times daily as per the type of thyroidectomy you have undergone, and along with that you will be given vitamin D also. So you will be asked to change the wound. Suppose you are away from the center where you have operated, you go to the nearby good hospital and change your wound, dress your wound, keep it clean, change your wound dressing after 3 days. And you will be called back after 7 days and less than 10 days. We will examine the wound, and the same time the biopsy report also will be ready. We will examine the wound, and the wound is healed well, then we will remove the sutures. And sometimes some surgeons, they used to put absorbable sutures, and where we do not have to remove it at all. See, few things I will tell you. When you have gone back home and suppose you get a breathing difficulty and you find the patient is altered sensorium, talking irrelevant things, and a few minutes or hours back the patient was complaining of numbness in the hand or around the oral cavity, then don't wait or at home. Please rush to the hospital, inform your doctor on the phone and rush to the hospital at the earliest, because these are the features of decreased calcium in the blood. How to deal with that, I will tell you after this. Now, soon after the surgery, we don't, even if you do total thyroidectomy, we don't start with L-throxine. We don't supplement immediately because we will wait for the biopsy report to come. Usually it takes 7 days. So once the biopsy report comes as non-malignant, we will start with L-throxine. If not, we need to further investigate the patient. What I mean to say is, it has come as malignancy, then we have to know what type of malignancy and how we are going to deal with it, and so many investigations to be done. Till then, the patient will not be given L-throxine until all the necessary investigations are over. So that time, the patient will put on more weight, appetite will be less, and facial puffiness will be there. These are the features of hypothyroidism. Now, let me tell you few important things, though it is small, not that significant. So, even after the suture removal, please do not hyperextend your neck for next 10 days to 2 weeks. And you can do your normal activities at home. Please do take rest in between and try to walk as much as possible. Don't overstrain yourself, and don't overstrain yourself at least for next 3 weeks after the surgery. Some of the patients, they have a complaint of throat irritation, of foreign body sensation in throat, that is post-operatively for initial 5 days. That is nothing, that is mainly because of the endotracheal tube which the anesthetist has introduced, and with the tube you were there in the theatre for at least 3 hours. That irritation will be persisting at least for 4 or 5 days, it resolves after that. And some of the patients, they complain pain behind the neck or discomfort behind the neck. That is because you are in a particular position in the operation table with extended neck, and you are in the position at least for 2 to 3 hours. Because of that, you may feel discomfort in the back of the neck, which usually resolves in 4 to 5 days. And normally you can take a bath after two days, but mind that the wound doesn't get, the water doesn't fall over the wound. And if there is a voice change after 4 to 5 days and the doctor has assured you that both the vocal cords are normal after doing an endoscopy, nothing to worry about the voice change, it will become normal. And bear in mind the L-Troxin which the doctor has advised you, you have to take as soon as you get up early morning on empty stomach with a sip of water, and for next half an hour to 45 minutes, please do not eat or drink anything. It has to be on empty stomach, that's why. So these are the common advice. Now let me brief about hypocalcemia. Hypocalcemia means the calcium level in the body has come down. The reason I have already mentioned. And this stage the patient will be in an altered sensorium. They will be talking irrelevant things. And a few minutes back they must have already told you there are numbness in the around perioral region and in the hands. And sometimes they have a spasm of the muscles which we call as carpal tunnel syndrome, spasms in the arms. And some of the patients they develop convulsions also. And they may get breathing difficulty too. So these are the features of hypercalcemia. So please give a call to your doctor who has operated on you and rush to the hospital casualty at the earliest. And this can, by the way, it can affect the low calcium, can affect the heart too. So as soon as you reach the hospital, they will connect you to the monitor so that they can know the cardiac changes. And not only that, they will first draw blood to know the normal calcium level, and along with that they'll find out the normal serum phosphorus level and vitamin D level also. And the calcium, serum calcium, it can be normal serum calcium or ionized calcium or corrected calcium. And when you rush to the hospital, when the patient staff nurse will be drawing blood, the duty doctor will find out clinically whether they have any feature which is suggestive of decrease in calcium in the body. That means he will, with a BP cuff, blood pressure cuff, he will inflate the cuff above the systolic pressure, 20 millimeters above the systolic pressure for 3 minutes, and what you will see is, you will see spasm like this, in this pattern, which we call as carpopedal spasm. And when he taps in front of the neck, in front of the ear, near the tragus, you find twitching on the face. See, these are the clinical features suggestive of hypocalcemia. But we will depend mainly on the lab features, lab findings. And as soon as the blood is drawn for the necessary investigation, we'll inform the laboratory that we need the report at the earliest, and soon after that we will start to supplement calcium. We will put in 300 ml of 5% dextrose or saline, and that will be flowing for next 3 hours. So after 3 to 4 hours, we will draw in blood from the other side and we will check whether your calcium has become normal. And if it is normal, you will be discharged. And suppose you have been taking calcium tablet, 1 tablet 3 times daily, we will advise you to take 2 tablets 3 times daily along with vitamin D. So that's how we treat hypocalcemia. All this I have already mentioned, and what we are going to give calcium is in the form of calcium gluconate. And we have a new one, that is recombinant PTH, which is given twice daily. Parathyroid hormone, which is given twice daily. But usually in most of the hospitals, what you see is IV calcium gluconate, which is being supplemented. So that is how we treat hypocalcemia. So I have told you all the treatment modality of multinodular goiter, non-toxic variety, mainly by surgery, and the most important, concentrating on the post-operative care. Thank you so much.